In a bustling lab filled with the hum of computers, Dr. Sherry Zhang is lost in her world of genetic research, peering intently through a microscope. Sherry's time in the lab is not just about research, it's deeply personal.
One of the reasons I love being a researcher is you got to know something before the world knows. You share a secret with your experiment.
Years ago, a young Sherry would listen to her mother's laments about gaining weight.
She always complained about that. She's always suffering from that, right? So I remember that.
The pain in her mother's voice fuels her work, igniting a passion to uncover the genetic secrets of our relationship with food.
In the lab that day, I was studying this gene called FTO. Turned out to be one of the most well-characterized clinical genetic marker for obesity.
With her mind brimming with possibilities, Sherry takes the bold leap from researcher to CEO. It's uncharted territory, filled with the challenges and the need for a diverse skill set.
When something like aha moments happen, oftentimes, whether for me and for others, you don't realize that power at the moment. You just feel there's something going on.
Dr. Sherry Zhang's story is a beautiful tapestry of personal connection, scientific curiosity, and unyielding determination. I'm Dr. Jessica Kriegel, and this is Culture Leaders, where we decode the magic behind the masters of movements to unleash the power of culture. This is the story of Dr. Sherry Zhang, master of a movement to revolutionize personalized health through the power of genomics.
You're listening to a Culture Partners production.
Sherry, what is your why?
My why? I think it's, I'm a very curious person. I started as a curious kid. I'm still very curious today. That drives me going and drives me wanting to get up every morning. So I think my why is just want to know more and want to help. I want to make the world a little bit better. It probably sounds a little cliche, but that's really my why.
And Genopalett's why? What is the organization's purpose or mission, or what's the organization's why, and how do you get to be curious and help by being at this organization at this time?
I don't know how much you know about my organization. We are a leading nutrigenomics platform that help people personalize their nutrition for metabolic health. We have a core technology. We run our proprietary algorithm to help you understand your nutritional ancestry, which is very unique. That is shaped by your 2 million years of your ancestors, how did they interact with their food environment and other environmental cues, and that really shaped up your genetics. And so we have one of the leading pioneering technology and then everything associated with to support that capacity to help people personalize their nutrition, which is so important. Coming out of COVID, everybody realizing keeping their metabolic health optimal is a key to their overall wellness and longevity. Food is truly medicine. Everybody is realizing that, and then the science is starting to back it up with evidence, and which is really, I'm really happy to see that happening. That's our organization's and mission and vision, and that everybody should have their personalized nutritional regimen, equip them with the information, knowledge, tools, products, services to be healthy every day and all the time.
So is the movement that you are spearheading a movement of creating health? I've heard you say in the past that health is a right. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think, we have a few human rights born into this world with, and one is a health. I think it's access to your private information, for example, your genetic code. We deal with that privacy issues and concerns and also protect it such that you could access it and then utilize it, right? So, and that's a privilege that if you give people access to to other people, such as a provider like ourselves, I always say it's a privilege to have. And then for that person to own that information and, own that knowledge, I think it's a right. And once you utilize that right, I think you will be much in control of your trajectory as a person. And you could really, change your fate for better and optimal. So that's why I'm calling that as a right.
Yeah. And so can you tell me, I mean, there was probably a moment, right? And I'm imagining a moment in a lab, and that may be completely made up, but I'm imagining that there's this moment of insight where you realize that there's a way that you can help transform the world with this information, this research you've done, or the solution that you've invented. How did you know that you had tapped into something that was going to change the world? And what was that like in that moment?
Yeah. And in my situation, there is such a moment. It's for real. So it was many years ago. I was studying, we have this capacity to screen your whole genome for certain mutations. It's called the single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. It's easier to remember that. Everybody has those. You have that. I have that. Usually it's when you compare two genomes, you see the differences. That's what, polymorphism happen. And my lab is one of the pioneer lab in the field of obesity genetics. So we study obesity, we study metabolic syndrome, using the genetic, epigenetic, genomics, information technology to find the causality underneath obesity and other traits. So I remember one day, one of the reasons I love being a researcher is you got to know something before the world knows, if that makes sense. It's almost like you share a secret with your experiment, right? And it's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And, a lot of our noise, but there are a lot of true signals. When you capture it, when we replicate it, it's real and it's a knowledge. And then you want to share, we publish, and so on and so forth. Eventually, hopefully, we'll apply it to bettering bettering medicine. And this is how we advance. So that's also one of the reasons, one of my whys. So that day, I remember that vividly, even today, that my mom, so the personal story here, she's a wonderful, beautiful lady all the time. And I remember her when she was, I was little and she was younger. She always complained about how easy to put on a few pounds on her body. And I was like, Mom, you're just great and you're perfect. You don't need to worry about it. But she does. That's what matters. And she always complained about that. She's always suffering from that, right? So I remember that. And it troubles me because I love her. Going fast forward, in the lab that day, I was studying this gene called FTO. It's later turned out to be one of the most replicated, well-characterized clinical genetic marker for obesity. So every single nationality or ethnic backgrounds, all the age groups, men and women, we tested for, there's a very strong and robust signal where if you have one allele from your mom or one allele from your dad, it's an AT codes, so to speak, if you remember, your high school biology or genetics. If you have two alleles of the two copies of the A alleles, I should say, you will have much better chance of expressing obesity, overweight, even you eat the same food compared to the people have the other two different genotypes. You're following me? So it's a powerful tool because everybody has that. Everybody has a genome, and we have a way to type that all of a sudden. At the time, this is very expensive, but it's hidden in the research lab. So we were the pioneer accessing this capability. I remember I told myself, I was like, this is really interesting. I really wish I can type my mom for it, And then I thought, okay, what about me? What about everybody that I was studying? We have this wonderful cohort, all the donors, they're suffering from obesity for a long time. And then what about, my family and others and friends? Because obesity is such a rising epidemic. It's still rising today. Yeah, so that's really the moment. I hope I described that, the curious moment. It's when something like aha moments happen, oftentimes, whether for me and for others, it's not, you don't realize that power at the moment. You just feel there's something going on, and then you pursue that, and then you pursue that, and then who knows, one day maybe become something real.
I so appreciate that story, and I love how you described it's like getting a secret and you need to tell everyone what the secret is. I had that moment too when I was researching in my doctoral program. I was studying generational dynamics. It wasn't in the lab, it was with people in that setting, in the corporate setting. And I had a theory that each generation had unique needs and preferences and values, and I was going to figure out what those were so that companies could figure out how to treat millennials differently from Gen Xers, differently from baby boomers, in order to drive results and attraction and retention of talent, yada, yada, yada. And what I found out was that that was completely false, that it was a fabricated, imaginary label that we were placing on people, oversimplifying the complexity of human experience, and essentially applying our biases to a story that was made up. And when my data showed that, suddenly I thought, oh, everybody's got to know this. I got to get everyone to know this because they're going to be better if they know this. How can I? So then you transition. There's this moment where you're a researcher and you have a secret, to the moment where now I'm almost like a marketer. I'm an advocate. I'm a social change spearhead, right? There's something different in research versus getting the word out. So then you're CEO of the organization, or you were at the time, right? So how did you transition from research to running a business to trying to spread the word? And how challenging was that or not for you?
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. So you know it, you know exactly how it feels. Well, it's a loaded question. So I guess you wanted to add, I wanted to know how did I transition, hopefully successfully, from a scientist to...
Yeah, you went from researcher with insight to CEO and really an advocate for this new approach to obesity. That requires all sorts of different skill sets, way beyond curiosity, right? Was that transition hard?
Oh my God, it's a grinding process, right? It's a for me, I don't have an MBA from Harvard, so to speak, right? And then I work with people with those degrees and or exposed to people with those. It's great to have it, but I didn't think I needed it in order to succeed in my quest. And then somehow it's all about how much you wanted it sometimes. And I think being curious, being cordial to your heart and to people, and being proactively seeking out for help, for mentorship. And there are a lot of good people out there who want to help you if you are cordial, if you're honest, if you tell them what you need, tell them what you don't have. They will jump in to help you if they see that, and especially when you have a very good cause, which I do, right? Helping a lot of people to be healthier, innovative, and merging this two amazing powers together. One is genomics, one is food is medicine. So it's not hard to convince people to be to listen to me, to speak, but in order to find a few, you just need a few. Sometimes you just need one person who believe in you, but will compliment you or teach you, to bridge you so that you could break that gap just enough that you could succeed. A lot of times it's not about you have to learn everything, but you need to realize what are you missing and who will have those skills and knowledge, experiences and hearts and minds to complement you to get the job done. And I think over time, people always say wonderful things about one of my superpowers is never shy of asking for help and never very good at spotting talent to work with me.
At the risk of getting too vulnerable, I'm thinking about all the men listening to this podcast right now, listening to two women chatting like I am on the verge of tears listening to you speak, because I talk to a lot of people, I interview a lot of people, and they all have the answers. They all have the answers. They just want to explain how it's supposed to look, what leadership looks like, or what they did to win, and your response is, I didn't have all the answers. I asked for help. It's like real humility, not the kind of humility that people lecture about you needing to have, but it's like actual humility, and it comes across, and I can see why people would want to help you, because you have this really sincere way of communicating, and it feels like the story about your mother, everyone has a story about their mother in some ways, everyone's thing is spurned by some childhood thing. And so you have that too, but it also just feels like you really want to make a difference in the world, and not in the way that gets attention, but really actually impacts the world. So I just appreciate you. Thank you for being a role model.
Oh, no, not at all. Now I'm, you make my face red. No, I just don't think we all figure it out, right? And yes, we all are capable in life, and we know how to manage this and that. And I don't think your audience need to necessarily know that from me. But I think the attitude is something it's hard to learn. And I do think if you always have that attitude of learning, you will never stop to grow, right? And I know a lot of people that are super capable, very highly experienced and accomplished and successful in their definitions, but they stop growing because they don't have that right attitude. And that's a personal choice. There's nothing wrong with it. So, but that's not me. I will continue feeling I know so much less than what is unknown there. And I wanted to fill that gap. And I think I'll probably just grow until the day I die or something,
Yeah. So let me throw you a curveball here. If I were to look at this without knowing you, without learning about your story, without doing the research, and I just see an advertisement for this, my reaction is, yeah, right. Does that really work? It feels like another gimmick. It could be, right? You've got Ozempic now, which, I saw Sharon Osbourne took Ozempic and she looks wildly different. That clearly works, right? This drug. There's all sorts of things that I'm being sold, though, all the time. And there's a certain skepticism that I bring to everything. So I don't even know how it works to know that it does work by having spoken to you. But for the people who don't get to see you and talk to you, right, and see this authenticity just dripping out of you, how do you communicate in a marketing capacity authentic solutions that aren't just a way to get people's money? Because I think people are always wondering, am I getting sold snake oil right now?
Yeah, it's a very valid and insightful question. Well, we deal with that all the time, every day, from day one until today, because it's nutritional genetics. It's a new field. We in medical school, back up a little bit, genomics is a new field for medicine, right? The most experienced doctors today, good doctors, they didn't get enough education, or sometimes no education in genetics, which is completely missing, right? Everybody has a genome that is the code determined. It's your user's manual for health. when you're born to this world. How could we not understand it and apply that to your health care? Right? It just doesn't make sense. And then the world started realizing it. And we have a lot of new curriculum at the medical school to amend it. But at the same time, there's again all the experienced doctors which we rely on for our healthcare don't have that knowledge and tools, right? So that's one thing. That's I'm talking about fundamental genetics for cancer genetics, for Alzheimer's, for prenatal planning and all that. And then now let's narrow down to nutritional genomics for metabolism. That's metabolic health. That's what I've been devoting my whole career life and until today's endeavors at Genopilot for. And we know your genetic code is black and white, whether as I shared earlier in the FTO aha moment genetic, finding story, I can tell probably 1,000 of those stories at the time. But as it speaks, it's black and white. You inherit one chromosome allele for any locations. You have 3.2 billion of those. 1.6 from your mother and 1.6. Did I make my math right? Yeah, 3.2 total. So the other half is from father. And then that's how we're so diversified, right? And then your mother comes with her 2 copies of father and mother, and they, they marry and then they have you. And that's why we're so beautifully unique. That's really how humans evolved, is evolving through the passing along generational transmission of your genetic code, mostly the mutations that makes you stronger, right? They're in the first place. If they precipitate, meaning they stay in. Some of them just dilute it out because it doesn't make any difference. But for something like, for example, I'm lactose intolerant, because of my Asian ancestry for that nutritional loci, and for Eastern African, Northern Europeans, or we call Caucasian populations, they develop that mutation so they can digest the sugar in milk. That gives them an advantage for survival, right? And then the genes are so smart, and over several generations, we're talking about hundreds of years, they will have stronger babies, and babies grow up and make even stronger babies, right? And then that's how the mutations stay. So that's when, as a scientist, as a geneticist, it's overwhelmingly real, right? And powerful. So once you know that, you just, like to your earlier point, you know this tool, that can potentially help a lot of people. And how could you not to want to give it to people? So that's my positioning. That's the positioning of a truly science, evidence-based science technology platforms like Genopilot is in. So we stay true to evidence. We stay true to our observation, and we're still learning. We have tens of thousands study participants. I would never have such a big study cohort if I stayed in medical school, because it takes forever to enroll and it's very expensive to enroll. But our customers, we sponsor the research. We pay to maintain the research. We don't ask them to do anything, just say yes. So then we can have access to their de-identified information, create new knowledge for the world to know. We will publish, we'll go through the peer-to-peer review system like we did as a researcher in the medical school. And people jump in to say yes. Lots of people participated that way. So I think once you see the face of truth, you have the confidence, and then you are empowered.
That's beautiful. I heard you a couple years ago talking about one of the greatest challenges that you experienced in running the business, and you talked about culture being a challenge. Can you talk about what culture challenge in particular you were struggling with, and how, if at all, you overcame it?
Yeah. I think culture is an evergreen problem or topic for leaders, for entrepreneurs to deal with. And we should embrace it. We should never say, "Oh, I figured it out." Maybe it sounds like my attitude is never figured it out, but always forever striving, right? I think I hope you resonate with this note because COVID hit, everybody wants to go home, right? And then everybody wants to stay home, and I benefit. I'm home today. I'm working. I'm productive this way. And then we become hybrid, and then we miss each other, right? So your culture changes because the environment changes and people changes, talent pool changes. So I think for me, it's really finding what is that core values that your organization has to protect, maintain, and grow over time. Almost like your belief, almost like your organizational religion, right? And then
Cultural beliefs, yeah.
Cultural belief, and stay true to that and be flexible, be agile, so that you could adapt to the changing environment and changing personnel, which is almost a constant, right? It's not almost, yeah, the changing is almost a constant. And I think I'm figuring out a few things, but not at all. But I love it. I think culture is most powerful thing. I think and your audiences all agree, people is the key, right? From you to your people to the talent you recruited for us, there are investors. They believe in us. They believe in the mission, and then customers. We have so many lives we're servicing today. It's overwhelmingly flattering. It's for me and as a founder and for our team, we're absolutely loving that. At the same time, they have lots of problems. Every single story is personal. It's different. And this is our business. So how do we deal with that, right? So there's a lot of change covariates there. But I think if you stick to the value of your organization, whatever that is, and then stick to your talent pool and people who you care about, you're servicing, you work with, and make sure you always enjoy doing that, having fun working for those people, with those people. And that's your culture, right? The culture will people alike will find each other. I always believe that. It's also true for work. And the culture will find you almost. And then you need to maintain that. You need to have a structure. You need to have incentives. You need to have, rewarding systems so people thrive in and feel good about it. But I think, I think just stay true to the value and be flexible.
So what's really interesting is we talk about culture being the way that people think and act to get results. And at the core of the challenge of culture transformation is how to create sustained behavioral change. Because I can have a team building and change behavior for a short period of time pretty easily. I can give a speech and change people's behavior for a short period of time, no problem. But sustained behavioral change that does not require micromanagement, but is authentic to the person who is changing their own behavior is really hard to do. And this is something that I would imagine you're grappling with your product as well. I mean, you're trying to get people's behavior around eating to change. And I've heard data doesn't change behavior, experiences and beliefs change behavior. So how do you lean into the experience or the belief that your customers are having to change their behavior around food? Because just telling them can't do it, right? I mean, I kind of know I'm not supposed to eat a bunch of sugar. I should eat a bunch of vegetables. It doesn't make me do that. How do you get them to change their behavior?
Yeah, it's a key problem we're trying to solve as a industry as a whole, right? This health, we call it consumer health, self-care. Right now, we're trying to disrupt the traditional healthcare, which is really a sick care system. We want to be proactive, self-aware, working with clinicians, which I absolutely love working with them back when I was in the biomedical system. They're brilliant and capable and, really want to help their patients, but the system is not working, to facilitate healthcare, which is, you need to be preventative, right? But the business model doesn't support that yet, but it will. So behavior change is hard, but we learned a few ways to help our customers as a case study here. One is back to the power of your ancestry. Your ancestry is so powerful to that person that our customers start using our technology platform products and everything in the first place because they not only they believe in science, they believe in we're the true scientists in the field. That's after you have to read about us, you read about me, read my papers if they do a lot of research, right? But we're strangers to them. We're brand new, we're unknown, we're startup, and at the time especially. But they are familiar with themselves, right? They're familiar with the notion that this trait, whether it's overweight and whether it's easy to get stressed and overcome with eating and all this behavior, and they runs in the family, right? That is genetics. So I think they already have that notion. What we provide is scientifically demonstrate and show them this is your genetic code for that particular gene, particular mechanism. This is the gene story around it, as we talked about earlier. So it's a validation first. It's much easier to validate what you already believe than convince them to believe something else, right? But if it needs to be converted, and we do that if that's better for them, if we know for sure, right? So we do all kinds of habit forming, habit changing, facilitation. But so back to that point, I think genetic and personalization, personalized nutrition, personalized health is already having its own, the foundation. So we just build upon. So that's helpful. But it also takes a lot of education, take a lot of convincing. And I think, I don't know if you read into Dr. B.J. Fogg's theory and study. There's several gurus in the behavioral science in today's world. And I met Dr. Fogg, and he's a wonderful person, and he helps small and big groups to do exactly what we're talking about: habit changing, habit forming. What is the science behind the behavioral pattern? A lot of times what people think the right thing to do has nothing to do with what they are truly doing, right? And we constantly recalibrate our belief or our reality. And we know, like to your point, added sugar is bad. I'm not suggesting you are doing that for yourself. I don't know your story, but people will lie to themselves, and then will take sugar on spot because they need it at the moment, right? So how do we help them to make it an easier change is the question. I think Dr. B.J. Fogg's theory, one is called tiny habits. So it doesn't have to be big, huge, tremendous, big deal. It's really accumulation of tiny habits every day, every week, little things. A lot of times, I found this very helpful is something called habit stacking. What it is you stack a new habit which you want, or change which you want, or has healthier. For example, Genopal has a supplement, right? You want to introduce the supplement to your lifestyle. How do you do that so that you don't forget and you feel it's super easy? You find the existing habit of yours and stack your new habit into that. For example, this might be awkward, but if you want to take pills right after you brush your teeth every morning, so you stack that new habit into your existing. I found that model you can apply to all sorts of stories is very effective. It's easy to do. And there are studies for that, once you repeat that for certain numbers and certain period of time, it becomes a subconscious thing. Then it becomes really a habit. You don't have to use your mind power, brain power to drive that action anymore. So that become autopilot, behavior. That's what we want.
There's a great phrase that I constantly remind myself of, which is that we act our way into right thinking. We don't think our way into right acting. And so just doing these tiny action changes eventually becomes second nature, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times it's just trial and error for what we do. Health is such a complex thing. And ancestry is humongous. Our customers once they are on the call with us, they can't stop talking. It's wonderful. But it's life. It's chaotic. There's no order. Put the order into it. It's not gonna work for most people. So we stop trying doing that. We just try to fit into their existing life and make it a little bit better and equip them and facilitate so that they feel a little bit better and more empowered and happy. So.
Well, I love what you said about we're just validating something that they already know. I had that moment in this conversation when you were talking about ancestry and you said, well, your mother had this behavior and so you too, that's genetics, that's ancestry. And my mom was a completely disordered eater. I remember when I was a little kid, she would pick one food and that would be all she ate for 3 meals a day for 6 months at a time until she got sick of that food and then she'd move on to something else. At one point, it was the Big and Tasty at McDonald's. At one point, it was toe fruity. At one point, it was spaghetti meatballs. At one point, it was oatmeal. But whatever it was, that was all she ate. And I remember thinking, man, that woman is insane, when I was a kid. These days, I have not that. I have a lot of variety in what I eat, but I either have what I call on or off. I'm either on and I'm eating sugar all day long, or I'm off and I'm not eating any sugar, but I can't find the balance. I can't do just a little bit of sugar every once in a while. I'm either on or off, and that is a form of disordered thinking around food too. And when you said that's genetics, I thought, wait, that validates something I guess I intuitively knew without actually realizing, so it's true.
It's fascinating stories. Yeah. So to that point, it's interesting. I was in a lot of smart kitchen groups and they make smart, equipments and smart refrigerator, LGs and that sort of thing. Super cool. And so we talk about recipes a lot, right? There's a lot of millions of good recipes out there. We also provide recipes to our customers using their, personalized information, which is really neat. But I was reading some shared knowledge in our industry meetings, and I was surprised to know, and it makes sense that the average numbers of food people will always go back to is about 7. No matter how many recipes, how many new things you throw at them, the average is really less than 10. I think it speaks to a little bit like the, your mom's behavior is reflecting and what you're reflecting, and I can resonate with is people need to be pretty simple when it comes down to eating, and because you can only remember that many foods to cook that you like, right? It's not that it can be complicated anyway. So.
Yeah, I've got a lot to think about and remember and do every day. And if food can be one less thing, then my life feels a lot easier. I probably have 5 recipes, that I go back to consistently. That's why I love going to dinner at other people's houses, because I want to say, what are your kind of core recipes? That's one of my party questions is, what's your favorite thing to cook? Because I'm looking for inspiration. And despite all the inspiration, I always end up going to The 5 things I kind of know how to cook, lasagna is one of my go-tos. I learned when I was in college. I'll always cook lasagna as one of my go-to dishes.
Yeah.
So a question for you is, what's next? What's on the frontier of what you're thinking about or that you're curious about that we can look forward to if we continue to follow your journey?
Oh, thank you. I really want to, whether with Genopilot or beyond research or, business, I wanted to understand longevity, aging better.
Mm,
I mean, it's a huge field, right? It's a huge movement going on right now. A lot of really interesting advancements from science and biological understanding perspective, but and information technology, sequencing and everything, you name it, is all part of it. Computational power, algorithm recognition, AI, but I think that the reason is what really drives me to do what I have been doing. I found out for myself is really I'm attracted to bigger problems, so to speak. Before was obesity. I'm still trying to solve that, and I think that it's related to the healthcare. Our society gonna face this reality hard. Is aging population, not enough next generation or workforce generation to support that. And then we're gonna have a lot of not productive years, but just long years to deal with.
mm.
If that makes sense, right? So this health span versus a lifespan, and ideally you want that to be almost the same. So we be thriving when one day we die, right? That's my ideal path, but not for everyone. But the current situation is we happy, and then not happy and not healthy for a longer time, thanks to medicine. Right? We'll just keep going. And not dying is a wonderful thing. It's a blessing. But I think the next question that we could do a lot from today is I want myself and my son, I have a wonderful son, I want him to be able to have very productive, long life until, until the term is here. So longevity is definitely my next calling.
So if you could change one thing about our culture, society at large, by giving people one suggestion, what would that suggestion be?
Work less and be happier.
Do you work less? I mean, how much do you work?
I don't work. I just having fun.
Oh man, living the dream.
I'm not trying to be be cheesy here, but I try to. I always say my job is to be the best mom for my son, and then what I do at work is a hobby. At least that's my attitude. And then because that's true to high degree, that's why I'm doing what I did and started a company. So this is something I can really having fun most of the times. There's always things you don't like to deal with, right? That's why. I really think, I think Americans, I travel a lot and I also came from another culture. Well, Chinese are really hardworking too. I think that's it's not necessarily better. But other places in the world, they don't work so much like we do. And then they're so much happier, All the talking about longevity, all the centenarians, the blue zones, right? They're not necessarily living like we do. And social is such a big deal. I see that a lot of them are just stay connected with their family, living with their family and friends. And And anyway, so we'll get there.
Well, it's beautiful. So I know we have a couple callers who want to ask you a question, so let's do that now.
Hi, my name's Christy Yao. I'm calling in from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am a founder at Honeycomb Luxury, which is a eco-friendly bamboo toilet tissue brand. And I also specialize in growth and customer acquisition. So I used to work with Sherry and Juno Pallets on that. So my question is for Sherry, which is that I've always been so impressed by how dedicated and loyal your team has always been, both to you and to Geno Pallets. So my question is, what do you think's contributed to that? How do you have such a motivated and dedicated team?
Well, thank you, Christy. I happen to know her through her work, and I think it's back to shared mission, right? So everybody on my team, I can't even tell you how much they wanted to help our people, help each other. We use our own products, and we have fun building it and make it better. We laugh at the mistakes we make, but at the end of the day, we manage to supply the world with something really neat and with high quality, and servicing our people, and that's really rewarding. I think once you have a mission like that, it can be many versions of it, but it's not hard to find the people think alike and be self-motivated to go to work and fight for the success of your project themselves. You don't have to be there all the time to motivate them. So hope that answers it.
Man, it just feels like you cannot manufacture this, and there's so many people manufacturing this. They're trying to figure out what's the secret sauce to get something to go big, and what you exude is this authentic desire to help. And there's a lot of people out there saying my purpose is to serve, right? And it doesn't feel like it's real. It just feels like the thing to say. And the answer is you just can't manufacture it. When you find the thing you want to do, if it really moves you, it's going to come across, and it's going to be almost, as you said, easy. So I'm just so excited. I don't know why. I just love this interview. Okay, let's take another caller and see what other magical question we can get.
Hey, my name's Kobe Sconnard from Idea Wake in Milwaukee. My question really centers around how you cultivate culture at a startup. So often you're a small team, and over time you got folks coming and going, and really would just love some insight on best practices or what you've done to help build culture and like a positive work culture at a startup.
Yeah, and you talked about this briefly earlier about those cultural beliefs or values. Is there something specific you can tell a leader to do, something you've done where you saw a difference in terms of action around that?
Yeah, what I have learned is you just have to, I run a small team, right? And we have 20, 30 lives, peak time, but it's still, I know every single person's names and their spouse names, their family structure. When you run 300 people, that might be a challenge. So just qualify for it. When you run a startup, I think I found it just me liking to do that, and eventually become a good system where you wanted to care for your team individuals. You care enough to know everything about them, and you sit down with them over coffee, over beer. We're in Wisconsin, and when you care, they know, and they will. It's about trust, right? You develop that trust. Trust is everything. You want to have capable people. That's why you interview them. You want to make sure they have the right experience, and then they can work with each other, right? But the job interview take care of it. What you don't know is what you can, how much, whether, it's not how much, whether you can trust that person, and more importantly, they can trust you. I always think every day as a startup, you are going out into the battlefield. You cannot leave your life in someone's hands without trusting that person, right? So just you wouldn't do that if you're a soldier, and vice versa. So working on establishing that trust, show you truly care, and I think you will have a great team.
Amazing. All right, and my last question for you, and I can't wait to hear the answer, is what's one question that no one really asks you on these interviews or in podcasts you've done before that you really wish someone would?
Okay. You get me this. You get me with this one. Well, how about this? I think one question, and there's many questions that people haven't asked. One will be, what do I want to do, but I cannot do right now?
Okay, what is one thing you want to do but cannot do right now?
I really want to travel the world with my mother.
Oh, wow.
She's the reason I'm here, and she loves traveling. And I couldn't see her because COVID. Our locations, it's been really hard. So I really want to do that, and I hope I can make it happen soon.
It's so beautiful. You know, a thought that occurred to me while we were talking, this experience you had with your mother created this entire movement that you have been helping so many people with. And my negative experience when I was in a really toxic culture was what created my passion for workplace culture and finding that solution that created my whole career. And I have a daughter, you know, a little 6-year-old girl, and whenever she's in pain or hurt, it just breaks my heart. And I feel like I've failed somehow. And I just want to do everything I can to protect her. And in the course of this conversation, I had the thought, you know, maybe like I'm divorced. And so my daughter is a child of divorce, which is really hard. And I have a lot of guilt about that. But maybe she's going to be the premier, you know, co-parenting therapist in the future because of this negative experience. I mean, that's the resilience thing that everyone is always talking about. These negative experiences that we have, or these hard moments that we go through, you know, maybe there is a reason, and maybe we have to get beyond the kind of bad feelings that we want to avoid. I mean, that's the thing I'm always working on because I hate bad feelings. It's why I drank a lot, you know? So I just feel so moved by this conversation, and it's touched me in so many different ways. I'm so grateful that you came and chatted with us. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you for tuning in to Culture Leaders. I'm Dr. Jessica Kriegel, hoping you found inspiration in today's story. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and share your thoughts. And thanks for listening.
To connect and learn more about today's guest, visit the link section on this episode's show notes. Please be sure to connect with Jessica and the show at jessicakriegel.com. There, you'll be able to see all the episodes and learn more about transforming culture at your organization. This episode is a Culture Partners production. Until next time, keep shaping a positive culture. Thanks for listening.